The title of my talk is Change the Essence of Life and Be Willing to Surrender What You Are for What You Could Become. This quote comes from Reinhold Niebuhr, and if you've heard something similar to this quote before, it's simply because it's very much akin to another famous quote of his, which is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. How many of you guys have heard that before? Okay. It's very popular. We won't have to talk about where, because it's very popular in 12-step programs. Okay. But I guess I want to start off by saying my name is Mike Devoley, and I don't think I'm a stressaholic. And part of the talk today will be about change and how change can bring stress into our lives. And as a professor, I really do enjoy the changing of the seasons and my schedule throughout the day. But I did think I wanted to talk today about how we deal with change in our lives. Because as Mahatma Gandhi once said, we must become the change that we want to see. So for me, change is the essence of life. Life is essence, or what we're made of. Life equals change. Change equals stress. Stress equals life. And although I'm not a physicist, as a social scientist, I at least know that delta is the symbol for change. And so I created this pyramid of truthiness, as I refer to it, and I got a chance to present that at a TEDx a couple of years ago, that really, to me, psychology is about bio, psycho, social, and even spiritual change. Most textbooks today will discuss the biological, psychological, and sociological, but I'm going to wrap all that in a nice spiritual package that we'll close with today, and how the spirituality, or at least buying in and believing into something larger than ourselves, can assist us with these changes in our lives and changes that occur within ourselves. That's myself as an example. Feel free to put your picture in at any time you like. So studying psychology and life, it's a life science, the study of life. And many people aren't aware of this, but psychology, the term itself, means soul or self or body or breath. And so, again, to me, this really boils down to being your essence. And human beings and their development is the science that we seek to understand within psychology, how we change, how and why we remain the same, and that the more things change, obviously, the more they could be the same, and that we are the same soul that we are today as we were the day before, but that we're constantly evolving and growing. My pyramid of truthiness, I can't say it was probably original. It was an idea probably worth sharing from Abraham Maslow. Who's heard of Maslow before? He kind of is taken out of psychology into multiple fields. So I might as well at least give a shout out to Maslow and the happy human up there in your right-hand corner. Maslow's goal, as well as other humanists, is for us to reach our highest potential, what he called self-actualization. So his pyramid is really sort of flipped over from my pyramid, or vice versa. We'll give him credit first, that his bios are at the bottom, right? Physiological and safety needs, psychological needs being in the middle, and then spiritual needs, what he called self-actualization needs, at the top. Or again, becoming the best you that you can be and becoming the happiest human possible. Looks pretty happy there, right? This is John Lennon's hierarchy of needs. Perhaps you've heard of him before, right? So according to John Lennon, all you need is love. I think it's a lovely idea, and I think you'll see today in the remainder of the talk that love is an important factor in psychological well-being, but perhaps not all we need. Some other thoughts on change. Darwin once said, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, but nor the one that's the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. So when I was asked to present my title, I thought that change the essence of life sounded nice, sounded flowery. On the Ecology Club Advisor, I throw a butterfly up there as a symbol. I thought about calling it change or die, but I thought that was maybe a little bit too negative. Right? But that's really what Darwin is saying right here. It's not how smart you are, how sexy you are, how strong you are. It's change or die. Some nicer thoughts on this from Marcus Aurelius. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make of it, or at least the universe is flux, and life is our opinion. And another famous quote, obviously, for there is nothing good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. So beginning with my pyramid and moving our way down, we have the biological changes that occur through our life. And so you can see that change has multiple theories from a biological perspective. There's growth and decline, or what we call adolescence, and then perhaps a plateau somewhere in the, I keep pushing that further out, right? The 40s or the 50s or the 60s, that's midlife, right? And then a senescence past that point. There's stage theories, as you can see moving up. There's linear growth. And that purple line right across the middle, if we were to put a sound effect to that, what do you think that would sound like? Right? So the only thing that doesn't change in life is when you stop living, okay? And so even throughout life, we're always regenerating cells, regenerating organs, etc. So Heraclitus once said, "No man ever steps into the same river twice. With every breath, with every heartbeat, we're the same soul, different breath, different person." So moving into the psychological realm, which I'm more comfortable with than the biological realm given my training, psychological change is going to equal one word that some of you are familiar with. Raise your hand if you're familiar with that word that I put underneath psychological change. You've heard that word before, stress. Okay? So I'm going to give you a little background of the word stress. The definition of stress, you probably don't feel like you need me to define it, but part of psychology is defining things you probably don't think you need defining. Stress is the process by which we perceive and respond to certain events called stressors. I just love saying that when I'm stressors, as though you've never heard that before, that we appraise as threatening, like this young woman here on your left, or challenging and exciting, like you see on the person on the right. And in the middle, you'll see two Chinese kanji, and those particular words, or symbols rather, are for opportunity and challenge. You might have seen that before. So a crisis, using Chinese symbols, is an opportunity or a challenge. So it's how you view those particular things that come up into your life. If you've ever felt stressed before, you can blame this guy at your bottom right. His name is Hans Selye, and he is an Austrian-Hungarian Canadian. He kind of moved around a bit, but mostly he gives his credit to Austria. He coined the term stress in 1920. So before 1920, around Prohibition, somewhere in there, stress did not exist. Doesn't that sound nice, right? The term itself was not used in that way, shape, or form. So Selye's concept of the body's adaptive response to our various stress processes in 3 stages. And he knew this was an ambiguous concept, and in fact, in 1951, a commentator once said that his view, in addition to being stress among itself, stress is a cause of stress, stress is an effect of stress, and stress is also just stress. Still ambiguous, still a bit confusing, but also fairly disturbing, that you guys would not be here today without stress. A little bit of stress, the alarm stage, woke you up this morning. How many guys used an alarm this morning? Okay? So that little bit of, how many guys were excited about that and gung-ho and just, there was a bird that landed on your shoulder? That was your alarm? No, okay. So that amount of stress got you out of bed this morning, maybe got you to turn off the TV, stop eating bonbons, watching, is Jerry Springer on first? No, it's okay. Got you here to come to campus to the talk. Resistance as you move throughout the day. As I drove here from Montgomery College and down into Tomball campus, let's see, I passed a train that almost passed me. I got behind a tractor. Various things along the way that you just kind of feel yourself building up that stress response, even if you leave plenty of time to get somewhere. And then exhaustion. In about 14 minutes or so, when the talk is over, or actually about 8 minutes or so now, right? The autonomic nervous system, right, relaxes, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and you start feeling, kicks out, and the parasympathetic kicks in, you start feeling more comfortable again. If you're ever interested, there is a conference on stress. I imagine it must be a really exciting place to go. And this is a stamp that Hans Selye had, and apparently that's the icon for stress in his honor. The YerkesDodson Law related to this particular effect. I'm a huge fan of the normal curve, and I just love the fact that they took Selye's general adaptation syndrome and they turned it into a curve of sorts as well. This is actually a modification done by a later scientist. Nonetheless, it's misattributed to Yerkes-Dodson, and I'll go ahead and give it to you that anyway. That when we're bored, when you're driving here and there isn't a train or there isn't a tractor, what do we find ourselves often doing in a car? We find ourselves listening to the radio, we find ourselves under highway hypnosis, we find ourselves eating, biting our fingernails, whatever the case may be. When we move further on into the spectrum, though, there's an optimal level of arousal, an optimal level of stress that we might experience. And as we move past that, let's say we're running late or we have a deadline or we have a test, we move into anxiety and into, in the case of driving, perhaps road rage. Right? And so it's get out of my way, I've got someplace to be, I have someplace I need to go. I have the A capitalized there, A standing for arousal, because that's primarily what stress is a response to, B is behavior, and C is cognition. So the purpose of the Yerkes-Dodson Law, as I see it, or at least when we use it as an analogy, is to find balance between too much stress and too little stress. When we have too much stress, the adaptation syndrome works well for small little things, but over time, phase 3 leads to various signs of physical exhaustion. And so we find our reserves going from full to empty. Neural production declines, neural circuits in the brain break down, and if we move past these analogies at the bottom, but basically your telomeres shorten, and your cells lose ability to divide, your cells die, and you're literally burning your candle at both ends. Okay, so we can kill ourselves by having over amounts of stress. So pop quiz right here in the middle. Which of these do you feel is stress? You will receive a promotion at work. Okay? Your car has a flat tire. I think that one sounds pretty reasonable. You go to a fun party that stays out until 2 in the morning. Your dog gets sick. That doesn't sound like fun at all. Your new bedroom set's being delivered. Your best friend and his wife come to stay with you. You have a bad case of hay fever. Of course, the answer is what? All of the above. Okay, as professors, that's always a good one to go for, right? All of these are stress. Stress is many different things. Happy things, sad things, allergic things. Anybody suffering from allergies today? I heard about that on the radio. I don't want to rub it in, but yeah, I heard it's a bad day. I don't particularly have those allergies. And so that's going to create stress for individuals that are either biological, psychological, sociological, and might enter into the realm of spiritual. Many people carry enormous stress loads, and they do not even realize it. Again, stress is going to increase physiological and psychological arousal, leading to depression, leading to anxiety. There are small stressors, according to Selye, called hassles. Okay? There's a famous quote by Charles Bukowski. It's not the grand things that send a man to the madhouse. It's the small things. The shoestring or the shoelace that snaps with only a few minutes to go, which is why I avoid those at all times. Okay? Right? You just slip them on, right? Velcro will be your friend someday too. So smaller hassles, bigger disasters. We understand what disasters are. But if I go back to that Yerkes-Dodson law, many small hassles will build into one large disaster. And so we can find that our stress score can build up slowly over time, and the analogy of a frog in boiling water works pretty well. A little bit of stress makes us feel good. Would you rather have a mildly stressful job when it's 4:40 in the afternoon, or would you rather be sitting there and watching the second-hand tick, 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 tick by? And I do think that we err on the side of having a little bit of extra stress. The problem is suddenly it's April and finals are around the corner. And it's April and maybe some family are coming to visit. And it's April and you have that paper due. And it's April and you're giving a TED Talk. And all of a sudden you're an 11 on a 10 scale. And you find that your telomeres, right, somewhere are shortening up to a certain extent. So stressors can be good, bad, or ugly, big or small, and anywhere in between. And we have to change, adapt, survive, grow, and overcome. Otherwise, we're just going to be spoiled, fat, lazy, stupid, really not growing as individuals. So distress are bad things, and eustress. Many of you might not be familiar with the term, but Hans Selye coined the term eustress, and eu means good. So there are good stressors in our lives. So distress could be a bad thing, like a car accident or a lost job, whereas eustress is marriage, okay, at the beginning. Right? Does that work for everybody? Right? The honeymoon stage, if you will, and then you move into multiple factors that might be varied. So I like this particular example, and I don't think there's the credit up at the top. This is from a textbook from a long time ago. And so great things in life like marriage, stressful. Children, stressful. Job promotion, stressful. Good stress, opportunity for change and growth, but stressful nonetheless. Holmes and Rahe have a scale, and I've never found an updated version of this. It's from back in 1967. Apparently what stressed us out back then is still what stresses us out today. But I'd love to see some newer research about some first world problems like, I don't have Wi-Fi. Does that make sense? Or, my router's not working today, or something along I forgot my password. So on the left, I've truncated the scale for you. On the left are some of the larger ones. On the right is the bottom of the scale. You'll find that Christmas could be a good, bad stressor for some individuals, right? Mall parking and things like that. Vacations, change in sleeping habits, all of which can be stressful. So back to my pyramid, again, any change of biopsychosocial, spiritual can be stressful. From a social perspective, I love America, I love our democracy, and every 4 years, people get stressed out, right? They're either really happy about, I was like, should I add this slide, right? Because people are really happy about change or they're really unhappy about change. Very few of us are like, yeah, right? We might not vote, right? But we're very, very into our change. And over time, racism was a large change within our society, classism, sexism, heterosexism, other isms for social awareness and change create great amounts of stress in our society. Of course, I can't talk about the civil rights movement and somewhat without giving a shout out to Bob Dylan and the Byrds. The times are changing and stress is times of unrest. So moving into the end of the talk, I want to talk briefly about some ways to decrease stress. I'll have to move somewhat quickly through these, but look beyond wealth. Wealth itself does not decrease stress or increase happiness. Smile and act happy. You saw that in the TED Talk that opened up. You can fake it to make it as far as decreasing stress. Just move and exercise helps. Getting proper sleep, proper nutrition, and then spirituality is where we'll finish up in a moment. So when we look at spirituality, faith practices from around the world, meditation, chanting, etc., various prayer practices can be helpful. There's a gender difference in how we deal with stress. Women tend to befriend one another. They release oxytocin. They hug one another more. The mantra for decreasing stress could be hugs and not drugs. Men often turn to drugs, specifically alcohol. Men do not reach out to one another for a bromance. We kind of cross our arms, we drink our beers, and we shelter in place, I guess is the best way to put it. And those are recipes for not decreasing stress. Other things to avoid when trying to release stress or when you're highly stressed. I would recommend staying away from alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And by the way, that department now has explosives on it too, so stay away from all those 4 things would be a good idea. Some people, again, they stress eat. Comfort foods are lovely. And I found that stress is just dessert spelled backwards, but realize that that might not be a good long-term strategy, nor will this one be a good long-term strategy, although it is very effective in the short term. Bang your head here until unconscious, repeat as necessary. So spiritual coping. There are biblical references from the Judeo-Christian Muslim tradition to not worry and say that each day has trouble of its own. Do not worry about your life, for I tell you that all will be fine. Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season. And again, the birds, once again, you can add turn, turn, turn in there if you want to. Resilient. So over time, good character is not formed by a lack of stress. It's formed by moving ourselves through stress and overcoming on the other side. And so as I close up the talk, I want to give you some ways to fill up your tank and to deal with stress from a biopsychosocial perspective. Address the stressors in your life, soothe your emotions, exchange optimism for pessimism, try laughing, try confiding in friends. I guess selfies might be a future self-reduction. It couldn't hurt. I guess I should work on those more. Seek therapy in nature as an ecology advisor. I encourage that. Seek therapy in pets and family. Seek therapy in gardening. It's called hortitherapy. Seek therapy in dogs in gardens, right? You can combine them at the same time. Couldn't hurt, right? So there's my pyramid of truthiness, and again, changes the essence of life. Be willing to surrender what you have for what you can become, the courage to change the things you can. There's an extension to Reinhold Niebuhr's particular mantra, which we don't have time to touch on, but basically it just says, again, living life one day at a time, accepting the world as it is for what you can change and what you cannot. I wish you every success as you adapt and grow and change. Thank you very much.